Guys, we got a special treat here today. We've got Mr. Allan Dalton and Gino, the chairman of Berkshire Hathaway Home Service. What? You're the chairman of I don't even know what your title is. HSF, whatever the hell HSF is, okay? Yeah. Take that off the video. Okay. Can we beep this thing out? So I'm going to let Gino introduce their subject topic. We're going to run about 5 minutes extra for them. At the end of that, we're going to have the drawing for the Destin condo that Cindy was so gracious to donate for the Sunshine Kids, and for Debbie to grow 1 month coaching with her. Another half day. It's going to be action-packed. We're going to be moving just like yesterday, really fast, guys. Have a great day.
So this is Mr. Say and Mr. Do. It's kind of like a goofy thing that we came up with at convention, I think, to fill up a spot that some speaker could not show up for. And it went over very, very well. So Allan's going to kick it off. Allan Dalton, how many of you have met Allan Dalton before? Okay, so there's maybe a third or fourth of the room. For those of you who haven't, you're in for a treat. There's some people in this world that you can't duplicate, and Allan Dalton is one of them. Most people you can kind of duplicate, but Allan Dalton is one of them. He's been a mentor of mine since 1991 when we first met, and we actually met at a Mike Ferry, superstar retreat where he got up there and talked for a minute, and then there was a stampede back to buy his tapes, Power Language, and it was terrific. So he was actually drafted by the Boston Celtics. All right, and he was the president of Realtor.com. He had his own company. He's got a tremendous, tremendous career, but he's got so much knowledge that we'll let him go for as long as he needs to. And if there's any time left, then I'll do Mr. Do. But you're going to do it. But get ready for this. Here's my Allan Dalton imitation. The consumer believes that the real estate transaction is a fee-inflated event that they have to subsidize in order to promulgate an inefficiently run business. Allan Dalton.
Thank you, John. Good morning. First of all, is this working? I'd like to congratulate Vince for the amazing event that he puts together. I know a lot of you went out to his home last night. I didn't have the chance, but I heard a spectacular. In fact, I was telling Vince this morning that I grew up in a similar-sized home. Now, there were 6 other families living with us, okay? But I wish I were there. Basically, several years ago, I received a phone call from the investment bankers from News Corp. News Corp owns Fox News. They own the New York Post. And they were on the verge of investing $1 billion to buy Realtor.com. And because I had been CEO of Realtor.com for several years, they flew me from California to New York. And I'll never forget the first question they asked me. They said, Allan, how much longer do you think realtors in America are going to get away with gouging home sellers? Because in Australia, where we're from, the fee is 2%, and we sell homes just as well as you do here in the States. Now, I don't have the time to give you my very defiant and comprehensive response, but that just reminded me that there are great challenges. As Gino says, we don't have a challenge to be disrupted, but our value is under attack. So it's the diminution of our value. So people are looking to attack the value chain. So it's all about how as an industry, how as a brand can we express greater value. When it comes to image, we couldn't be in better shape as an industry. We're prodigiously photoshopped. We're resplendently dressed. We invented personal promotion. We've been writing our own rave reviews for 50 years. And the parking garages are brimming with our BMW. So we don't have an image challenge, but we have a value challenge because, as Gino was saying, most consumers do perceive a real estate transaction as a fee-inflated event which they have to subsidize in order to promulgate an inefficiently run industry. So one of the major ways that we express value is how we communicate. Confucius once said, all wisdom begins by properly naming things. And if you don't properly define things, kingdoms will fall and dynasties will tumble. This is probably our greatest vulnerability as an industry. For example, in the mid-1800s, when somebody wanted to sell their home, they would get in a horse and buggy and they go to the general store. And there was a list that they'd say, list your home for sale. So in a sense, the home seller was the de facto listing agent. 150 years later, what do we still call the person who represents the home seller? The listing agent. So we haven't evolved. I think you do more than just list a home. Would you agree with me? But the language doesn't, the language betrays that. Shakespeare once said, actions must suit the words and words must suit the action. Because when we say we're the listing agent, our job's over. I have the listing. Even the buyer has a buyer agent. There's at least representational value. So I think we have to completely purge almost everything we've been saying, because most consumers have developed antibodies to almost everything that we've been saying for years. So that begs this question. Who's going to make these changes? What leadership? What thought leaders? Now, that brings me to the subject of motivational speakers. I'd like to ask the audience, what motivational speaker has had the greatest impact in your career? Anybody? One. Who's the one person who's had the greatest career? Go ahead. Zig Ziglar. Anybody else? Next. Next. Anybody else? Joe Stump. Anybody else?
Allan Dalton.
Oh, see, Gino, he
Sorry.
takes away my whole punchline. So I was going to say, did you notice no one mentioned me?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, anyway, that's right. Now.
Well, Alan, at least they know we didn't rehearse this thing.
Exactly. But the point is this, and for good reason, because I'm not a motivational speaker. I decided that about 15 years ago. I was asked to speak at a national convention, and back then, if you were a speaker, what prefaced the speaker was motivational. And I knew intuitively I could never be a motivational speaker because I'm from Boston, okay? In the Northeast, because people in the Northeast just aren't evangelical. I was having dinner a few weeks ago in New York, and I'll give you an example of it. After dinner, do you know what the waiters say in New York after you've had dinner? Was anything okay? Okay? So when you think of motivational speakers, I don't think you think of Governor Dukakis, John Kerry, okay? So since I determined that I could never be a motivational speaker, and my only opportunity was to become a demotivational speaker, I contacted my daughter, who at the time was at Princeton University, and now she's a clinical psychologist. And I said, Ginny, I want to do some programs when I'm invited to speak and they mistakenly think I might be a motivational speaker. My only opportunity is to be a demotivational speaker. Can you give me some research? Can you do some research on what are the best ways to demotivate people from wanting to do business? And you might want to write these down because these are the 4 keys, okay? Number 1, make sure that you belittle them, okay? Number 2, do everything you can to embarrass them, and if possible, try to embarrass them in front of loved ones. The next one is to manifest an acute degree of self-preoccupation. In other words, actually talk about yourself. And the 4th has to do with get them to change how they think. And it occurred to me, our basic industry has been built on those tenets. For example, what percentage of realtors do you think have actually ever used the word comps? 100%. That's like going to a home seller and say, I've got some pictures of some comparable children, okay? Let's go over, come on, they've got 2 arms and 2 legs. I mean, what's the big deal here? Now, when we actually use language with home sellers, like comps, let's take a look at some similar homes. What percentage of home sellers do you think accept that? No, so you're not going to get them to change how they think. Instead, what percentage of home sellers do you think will say something like this? But they don't have 5 bedrooms. But they don't have a new kitchen. Does that happen all the time? When might it occur to our industry that we are making monumental mistakes in terms of how we're engaging people? And that might be one of the reasons we are universally resented in a lot of these polls. Because can you imagine the nerve of going to somebody and using the word comps or saying, let's take a similar homes, because we conflate and confuse comparative with competitive. Homes compete, they never compare. Okay? So now, but I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to demotivate people, because my premise is this. You should make a decision, if you want to be even more successful, to even be nastier to people or to even be a lot nicer. Because I think it's the people in between that struggle. In fact, so what I did is I put together an illustration to this point. I've developed a lot of marketing systems for national companies and firms, and here's something I did for Indiana, Berkshire, Hathaway. And the whole idea is that people don't want listing. By the way, what percentage of home sellers do you think want a listing presentation? 0. what percentage of realtors you think still use that terminology? It's a classic example of a disconnect. People want marketing proposals, but we actually still have people, you go to seminars and they'll train how to make a listing presentation. For 150 years, again, they've developed antibodies. So this is a one-page marketing proposal. Here at the first level, here's what everybody does, because when you checked into the hotel, at the front desk, they didn't say, by the way, you're going to have towels in your room, okay? So, oh, there's a phone in your room. Did you know that there's a TV? So we don't have to keep punishing people with what they already have heard for 100 years. And then here's the stuff that we're going to do. We're going to customize it for you, okay? So given that success, I figured maybe I should also do the same template for how we communicate. So I put this together. See, we're in an industry that basically has 6 words to describe all homes. You've heard them. Your home is beautiful, lovely, charming, gracious, spacious, and elegant. All property is either park-like setting or professionally landscaped. Do you still see these words everywhere? Yeah. Do you think there's realtors who still go into people's homes and say, you've got a beautiful home? That's an insult to people. That's the degree of your ability to capture the essence of my home. That basically shows your fulsome understanding of what you're selling here. It's like if I asked you to be a movie critic and you say, the movie was funny. It was scary, okay? And if somebody delivers pizza from Domino's at the halftime of a football game, do you think they might say you've got a beautiful home? But they're not charging tens of thousands of dollars. So I put together about 50 pages of distinctive dialogue, but I want to give people a choice. The first level, because you've got to either be Jekyll or Hyde. The first level is your home is filthy, your street's an eyesore, what a mess. Are these closets or bedrooms? Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Alan, and by the way, Vince will get everybody a copy of these slides too.
And so the point is this.
So now you'll know how to offend people better. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Because the most successful people I've ever known do that. They're either unbelievably nasty or they're nice. Now, for example, I'll give you one example of somebody, the number 1 agent I ever had. She's the number 1 agent in the Northeast for Coldwell Banker. Here's her commission handling technique. Now, I need your permission to bleep out the swears. I've never said an obscenity in my professional career, but in order to give you the technique, I'm going to have to bleep out, unless somebody would be even offended. Can I bleep out the obscenities? Yes. Is everyone okay with that, Vince? Yes. Gino, is that okay?
Yep.
I'm bleeping them out, okay? So let's be very clear. Here was her commission handling technique. This builder wanted to throw in $10,000 at the closing. Here's what she said in my office with me listening. There's no bleeping way I'm going to cut my bleeping commission. What do you think? I'm a bleeping hooker? Standing outside the Lincoln Tunnel at 3 o'clock in the morning giving bleepings to sailors? If you think I'm going to cut my bleeping commission, you can take this home and shove it, and I know it will fit. Okay? I immediately ran into my office. I was president of the company. I never heard a curse in my company. That's the culture we had. And I said, Susan, E&O's not going to cover this. Okay? And I'll never forget what she said. But do you think he's going to bring it up again? Okay? I went out on a listing call once with her, and the homeowner said, we're thinking of talking to John with Remax. Here's what she said. Oh, I know John. I have a lot of respect for John. He's done a great job turning his life around. Okay? The most successful insurance agent I ever know, God bless him, his name was Tom Sote. He was the number 1 agent for the whole world for Mutual of New York. I started insurance before getting into real estate. Here's what he used to say when people would come up with objections. Tom, how many years do we have to pay for the premium? Maybe only 1. Okay? Gee, if I die, my wife's just going to remarry anyway. He'd say, well, tell him, what would a woman with $1 million policy possibly want with another husband? Okay? And so my point is this. The most successful people, they're either here or they're here. And there's a lot of pages of better ways of saying things. Your home is second to none in terms of, you got to fill in the blanks. as well. Oh, it's lovely. It's beautiful. It's gracious, okay? Next here. I came across this years ago in the New York Times. It caught my attention. This is an obituary of Dr. Bastian Muse. Dr. Bastian Muse was the world's foremost describer and author of the smelliest plant on the planet called the voodoo lily plant. And it intrigued me that he would write 53 books. And look how comfortable and happy he looks and content. He wrote 53 books about the smelliest plant on the planet. It says in that article that the stench of the voodoo lily is so severe that it repels skunks. Okay? And I give his wife a lot of credit for being married to him for 50-something years when he came home from work from dealing with the voodoo lily every day. But it occurred to me, if this man can spend 50 years describing the smelliest plant on the planet, can we do a better job of describing homes? Okay? But that comes back to this. But some people want to hold back because they think, oh, if I'm too praiseworthy, the home seller will want too much. Now, let me ask you this. When other agents come to inspect your properties, do you think they come to praise or to criticize them? They criticize. We're in a critical industry, and we've got to change that. So we've got to understand, should we? So I did some research on praise. Well, first of all, before that, I did some research on how attorneys promote their value, okay? What impressed us even more than the many accolades your firm has received was the humaneness that you treated us with. Do you ever see quotes like that in real estate? No, we're number one. We're the home team. Spouses selling houses. List with us and start packing. Okay. We're number one. Okay. Next one here. Okay. It's like I went into a coffee place the other day.
Yeah.
Right, I went into a coffee place the other day. They had a sign, a banner that said, "We sell the world's #1 coffee." I said, by the way, who came in second? I'm proud of what I do and even proud of the people I represent. Do you think you see that in our industry? Of course not. We have to show great event. Don't be fooled by Mr. Corrick's modesty. He's very, very good at what he does. Of course, Mr. Corrick wrote that. He's a little bit more, you know. Now, we have an incredible support staff. Now, how many of you have teams? How about this ad? We have an incredible support staff who are intimately involved with clients to make sure that they get the proper support. Does that have a little bit more sophisticated tone? They've developed antibodies to all of our rhetoric. We have to retool our rhetoric to show greater value. Okay, next here. Improving a client's quality of life is the team's #1 priority. See, this is the way we've got to start thinking, in my opinion, okay? Now, sometimes you've got to be tough with people. My sister, she was she was engaged for 5 years. Her fiancé called it off the week before the wedding. She was devastated. And my sister's like one of my daughters, and I was trying to console her. And then finally she met this person who proposed to her a year later. He was a 3-time All-American football player at Notre Dame. He was 3rd in the Heisman, had never been married, and now he was a surgeon. His name is Ken McAfee, and he proposed to my sister, and I says, Kathy, congratulations, when's the big day? And she says, Alan, I don't think I'm going to marry him. I says, Kathy, why? Do you love him? I love him tremendously. Then what's the problem? Well, he kind of like thinks he's better than me. I says, Kathy, he is. I said, he's better than our whole family put together. 3rd in the Heisman? Next. Next thing here. There is nobody, absolutely nobody, who will beat us for lack of diligence. We will never be outthought or outfought. That's the kind of see, as an industry, here's where we fall down. How many of you have ever been in a transaction where the person representing the other side divulged something that you think they shouldn't have? Would you say it's almost an epidemic? See, that's why one of the greatest skills is negotiating. We're missing the point there and giving people the sense that you better, like somebody who say you better get an attorney if you get a divorce. Your partner's getting an attorney. You don't hear that in real estate. We've got to step that up. Okay, next here. Okay. Don't you think that, now here, this has to do with my research on praise. Don't you think that as an industry we are not frank enough with the public? All cruel people describe themselves as paragons of frankness. I tell it like it is. You know, I'm going, what died? What died here? Okay, next. Okay, right. Boy, I love what you did with your hair, especially the hair coming out of your nose. Okay. But what about people who like to tell it like it is, okay? It's the weak and confused who worship the pseudo-simplicities of brutal directness. Okay? As Gino says, it all comes down to tone and timing. Next here. But don't we need to be straightforward with home sellers? Bob, why is this blocking?
You're using the pointer.
Okay, here we go. That's why he's Mr. Do. Look at the difference, Mr. Do. See, amazing. Amazing how he did that. Now you're going to talk about my phone. Straightforwardness.
No, you tell.
No, Gino, please. Cut
Okay.
Straightforwardness without invitation becomes rudeness. Okay? Rather than focus on how I'm different, I'd much rather focus how we have to make your property different. You see, I don't compete against other agents here in Omaha, but your home competes against other homes. I actually cooperate with all the other realtors, but your home doesn't cooperate with the other homes in the market. It competes against them. So the way that I'm different, the way that the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services customized home marketing system is different is how we're going to point out what's different about your home. Let me show you how we do that. You like that?
Yeah. And we're going to do a video on the whole thing, right?
Okay. Now, here's a point. Here's a point I want to make. Last year, I made in January. I had the blessing and the privilege of donating my kidney to my wife. We had a daughter who was paralyzed for 15 years. She passed away. My wife was a caregiver, wouldn't let anyone else in the house. As a result, she ended up having strokes. Her blood pressure was in the 200s. Okay, she had to have open heart surgery, and then she was on dialysis for a year, right? And so then when we passed away, we wanted to sell our home in California. I picked the best agents that I've ever dealt with, Siggy and Pin with Berkshire Hathaway, a great team out there. So they had our home here and a lot of magazine covers, inside the cover, nice, beautiful home in Westlake Village. But I want to make a contrast with that in terms of what you say about people's homes. I then did consulting. This is before I was with Berkshire Hathaway. I was consulting with a company in Connecticut. And the realtor there, Julie Vanderblue, had this brochure of a property she had on the market. I brought this to my home in California. My wife, who never asked for anything in her life, literally said, geez, boy, I'd love to live there. So I wanted to first sell our home in California, maybe rent in the Upper East Side, be able to walk everywhere. But here's the difference, okay? See, what percentage of people do you think are going to see this before they see the home? None. Because that's not the way the world works. See, marketing real estate is about 3 words: range, reach, and influence. Range and reach you can check off because that's IDX and the internet. So therefore, I'm so happy for you because 15 years ago, you'd be asking me about exposure. Now you don't have to worry about that because your property will be automatically exposed to people in Brussels having breakfast tomorrow all over the world on all the websites, not just us, but Keller Williams, Remax, because it doesn't matter to you which company brings the right buyer, right? So I'm thrilled for you that we can check off range and reach. Range is the internet and reach is IDX. So that leaves us with an influence. Our key is to influence, okay? It's not just to get people to see your property. Everyone's going to see your property. Even if your property wasn't advertised to see it, because if there's 3 homes in town in this price range, every buyer agent is going to make sure that they bring their buyer. Otherwise, they may lose their buyer. Okay, so we don't have to do anything to get people to see your home anymore because of the scope of the internet. What we have to do is we have to influence them want to buy it. Okay, now, so that's what Julie did, because my wife saw this brochure, and just on the brochure, she had to have this home, because this brochure basically, where's my clicker? Do I have it here?
It's underneath the paper.
Thank you.
No, on the back. Against the back.
Thank you very much. This brochure here basically tells a story here. So now she does this for every single property, a $100,000 home to $10 million homes and up. Okay? So, for example, and I'm just taking some of the pages here. An interview with the homeowners. Now, basically, data and information have the lowest value, and knowledge and wisdom have the greatest value. Who has the greatest knowledge of the property? The home seller. But that doesn't come across because a listing presentation is about you, your company, and your past. A customized marketing proposal is about them, their property. So going back to that first thing, the first thing was the seller's insight. That's the opportunity to treat the homeowner as a collaborator, as opposed to a listing presentation victim. Because somebody went to a convention and went up and down the aisles like in the trick-or-treating ritual, and at a booth there was a listing presentation. Okay, somebody in the company gives them a listing, and turning a lot of pages. No, you've got to be able to have a critical thinker. You've got to be collaborative. You've got to treat the person as a marketing partner. And when you do that, it's got to end up manifested in a story. And you'll never, ever lose a listing. Some of you never do, but you'll be so confident you'll even prospect even more. So this page here has to do with an interview with the homeowners. Would you agree with me that a lot of people do brochures, and this isn't even in there? Right? Do you think this is important?
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't, because I got stuck with this house that's going to go down in value, that everyone's going to downsizing, okay, because my wife read every single word of this and fell in love with what the homeowner said. Okay, some people really read that stuff. Okay, now, the next thing is here. The top 10 things we'll miss about life at 750 Burr. Then what's happening in the neighborhood. This is all in the story. So now when she goes on listing presentations, she's got about 90 of them. She'll bring 6 or 7 of these brochures. I've been consulting for the company for years. I have programs like Neighbors Know Best. There's a page where the neighbors give their commentary. She'll spread out 5 or 6 brochures, and she said, you know, let's decide together. Let's go over different descriptions of kitchens in these brochures. Which descriptions do you like the best? Which descriptions of the landscaping do you like? Because she's really thinking like a marketing person, because she doesn't think she's going on an interview. She thinks she has every listing, so she's just there to craft, along with the home sellers, the marketing, okay? Special features and improvements. For example, what percentage of homeowners bring up special features and improvements? Is that expressed in every brochure? Of course it isn't. Because it's not getting people to see properties, it's telling a story to influence them. And another thing we're going to have to do, people ask me all the time, all these challenges, we have to go from our obsession of telling people how we sell more homes to how we sell homes for more. Okay? And that's a good thing to say, because no one can ever guarantee what a home would have sold for under a different set of circumstances. Here's something else that we have to change. Bob, how much more time do I have?
3 minutes.
Okay, here's something else. Here's a few.
We'll give you 5 extra.
Okay, thank you. Here's a few other things. Here's a few other things that we have to change. Number one, if we continue going through our careers, because this is what people have been training and coaching for years, and thinking that homes don't sell because of price, we're stepping on our own ear hose. We're reducing our significance. Because if the only reason a home doesn't sell is because of price, the only reason it does sell is because of price, and it leaves us as overpaid appraisers gouging people. There's only one reason why a home doesn't sell, and that's because of marketing. Because price is part of marketing, but marketing is not part of price. And if you don't understand that, that skews your entire career. You'll always use the wrong language. You might be a person that would actually say to an expired listing home seller, are you aware that your home's no longer in the market? Okay? Do you also know your sunflower chemistry? Because if you think homes haven't sold because of price, you're not going to call a home seller and say, has anybody told you exactly why your home didn't sell? No. There's only one reason why a home doesn't sell in Omaha. That's because of marketing. Oh, I thought it was, no, because price is part of marketing. But you can have it either way. You can go through your careers thinking that homes don't sell because of price, and you can be right. You could say, hey, you could have 5 dead bodies in the basement, but if you lower the price enough, somebody will buy it. Or you can say the home might not have sold because the staging was incorrect. There was poor negotiating. We've got to raise our value. The same thing with for sale by owners. We've got to stop going to for sale by owners and saying things like, have you had many offers? That's like going to a restaurant where no one's eating and saying, you always this busy? People aren't stupid. We've got to stop telling people you've got to be careful about strangers. Those are scare tactics. In fact, 95% of all the bad things that happen in the home are because of loved ones and family members, so they're safer with strangers. So the point is this, you've got to be able to say to people, you can sell your home, I can market your home. If all you want to do is sell your home, you don't need me. But if you want to market your home, I'd love to represent you. I want to basically leverage the laws of supply and demand. So a lot of our language hasn't changed in 100 years. It doesn't fit. And the last thing I'll say that I'm working with Gino on is this. I think it's the greatest challenge that we have. People have one doctor, one dentist, one lawyer, and one financial planner. But they've got 8 realtors. So how do we put an end to this Russian real estate roulette? We have to do what other industries did. The insurance industry had to make a change years ago. When they first started selling life insurance, it was called burial insurance. Then they called it death insurance because they could sell more expense tied to it. Then some positive spinmeister came up with this idea. Wouldn't it be easier to sell if instead of calling this death insurance, we call it life insurance? Do you think that was a good move? Yeah. And now you can't even find life insurance agents. They've all become financial planners. So basically, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services stands for trusted advice. We've got to be the reason why people buy and sell real estate. We've got to have value before, during, and after the transaction. Chris Stewart has done a phenomenal job working with Gino. If you've seen the cover about the Forever brand, we needed a Forever brand. So one thing I'm working on with Gino is something called, I introduced this many years ago, the Real Estate Financial Planning System. This is in the late 80s. I asked myself this question. What percentage of consumers regret not owning enough real estate? Almost everybody. What percentage have ever developed a real estate plan for life? 0. So that's the great need, and we've been sending out refrigerated pumpkins, self-aggrandizing brochures. People go on listing and say the biggest reason you should list with me is because you get me into some homeowners. That's the most frightening news of the night, okay? And so what we need to do is that we need to stimulate people to start taking a lifelong view of real estate, which I think comports to the essence of the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services brand. Thank you for your kind attention. I think I'm right at my deadline. I'll turn it over. But I'm going to turn it over to Gino this
Hey,
morning.
Allan, before
Yes.
you turn it over, would you let them know what your role is at HSF Affiliates? I think it's a very cool role, and no one else, no brand has this role. Of course,
Well-
no brand has Allan either, but us.
No, to show how strategic Gino is, I'm being used. I'm being used to preemptively inoculate the company against age discrimination suits. Okay? And I think that, because I'm 69, okay, and he's very smart to do that. Wouldn't you say? Right? No, I'm the Senior Vice President of Research and Development, working with Gino and Chris in terms of developing one of the things we're working on is we're calling, for lack of a better name, the Manhattan Project, every single way that we can help better defend value and fees against these threats and disruptors, whatever that you'd call them. But I want to talk about introducing Gino. I don't think there has existed ever in real estate a person who has built a company on the personal involvement in terms of career development. When Gino, first of all, was the #1 agent out of 1,700,000 people in Santa Clara County, California, Silicon Valley for many years. No other CEO in the history of the industry can say that. Not even close, okay? Then when Gino was the president of the #1 Century 21 company, 9 out of the 11 top offices in the world were his offices. The office where he was the #1 agent in the company, #1 manager, and an owner, he had 18 out of his 21 people 15 years ago making over $100,000, which would be the equivalent of $600,000 or $700,000 today. And they were all in the top 40 of the MLS with 12,000 people, okay? Then he started his own company called Intero from scratch. That became the 6th most successful real estate company in North America. That's what Gino has done professionally. Personally, he was named Italian American Man of the Year, okay, in California. He's in Mike Ferry's Hall of Fame. He's in Tom Ferry's Hall of Fame. He was Brian Buffini's Mentor of the Year. Over several hundred mentors, he was named the Mentor of the Year. And please put aside his very, very lame imitation of me, okay, before, and please welcome Gino Blefari.
Thanks, Allan. Thanks, Allan. That was good. That was good. That was good, and that was actually funny. That was great. And Allan, I just got to tell you, I would have never have said Allan Dalton had I known that was the punchline that you were doing. But you were a huge mentor to mine. That some of these language things, I would go home and take the cassette tape back when Jesus was a baby, right? And I would write out the language that he would say about it's a listing proposal and all of these things. And we're going to where'd you put the clicker, Allan? Okay, we're going to and we're in the process of making, some of the, with mainly, is this it? Yeah. The stuff that Allan, with his brilliant, unduplicatable brain has done. We're going to have a whole pricing series video of us going over pricing. It'll be a tiny bit of my stuff, but a lot of that same philosophy that you'll be able to listen to. We'll do the customized marketing program. We'll do programs for everything geared for Berkshire Hathaway. And really, there is, before I get going on the Mr. Do part, there's with these. We hear about all the disruptors. It's really not disruption. It's diminishing our fees. And so we've got a huge, huge plan together to always justify what we do, because there's going to be, you're going to have in one corner, you're going to have the discounters, right, that talk about their little surveys of giving great service. Right, so they'll have great service, and then you've got the full service agents that take care of you before, during, and after a transaction, and do everything for you, which what we believe in doing. So there'll be a little bit of a war going on. It's going on right now, but it'll continue to go on, and hope our plan is to win that war. Okay, so let's see. We've got Allan's little slides here. Okay, that's actually Allan's house. Okay, he did buy, and there's another thing about Allan. All these years, because he gave his wife to gave his kidney to his wife, right? All these years, I thought he and his wife weren't compatible, but they were. Just trying to be a tiny bit funny. Okay, so I'm going to be Allan's Mr. Say, and you can certainly tell he is Mr. Say. I mean, he is just. You only got a tiny, tiny glimpse of kind of like this, magnificent brain that never turns off. The other thing is we're actually, and hopefully it'll be out by convention, I have a book coming out, and it's going to be more of like we might do a Mr. Say, Mr. Do book, but this book here is going to be Accountability, Real Estate's Missing Link, and Why a Real Estate Career is a Terrible Thing to Waste. And it should be a pretty cool book that's going to come out in the spring. All right, so I'm Mr. Do, and kind of a couple things. Remember Emerson? Emerson said, "Do the thing, have the power." He didn't say the thing and have the power, right? Okay, or how about this? Kids, kids don't sometimes do what you tell them. They do what you see you do. Or it's not called monkey see, it's called monkey see, monkey do. So this is all about do and how you do. And one of so I'm going to go through some things that I've done to get cloned Mr. Do. One of them is keystone habits. The keystone habits create small wins. Small wins are just what they sound like, and there's a huge body of research on a small win if you want to research it. And what happens is it has a greater impact than the little win itself. And it sets another thing in motion, and another thing in motion, and another thing in motion. And they come from keystone habits. So my keystone habits that I try to start out every single day with is meds. My meds. I take my meds. M stands for meditation. It can be meditation and prayer depending upon whatever your beliefs are, but it's some form of meditation, some sort of pause, okay, of pause in that day. Rather than prayer, I like to actually just do more of a gratitude thing. That's what that is. Now you can do certain things when you meditate. You can box breathe. You can plug one nostril deep in, hold it, let it out another once in a while, but you can calm. You can do a 7 in, or excuse me, a 4 in, a hold for 7, and then let it out for 8. Breathing will kind of help you get settled in there, but that will help you do more. So that's the M on meditation. Now, a little bit of history on that. If you studied it, monks that meditate all day long actually grow their left prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain where you process happiness. So meditating can help you become happy. Of course, you can work for Vince, and then you're just automatically happy too. But meditation. If you're not in this office here, they need to meditate. Okay, Vince. And by the way, what an amazing, amazing culture that you see here when you walk through this office. Going back in time, building that company, that it was actually not 15 years ago. It was like 1989. 23 agents, 17 of them made over $100,000. But it was a mini thing of this big, huge, giant thing that you've created. I mean, it's just amazing to do it on such a large scale. It blows my mind. But you have writers on your signs. We had writers hanging down with all those same little sayings as you're walking through the office. Okay, so that's M. E stands for exercise, right? Just simple exercise. Where's my workout partner from Connecticut? She's on her way back to Connecticut. No, where is she? Oh, there she is. There she is. She's in the back. She's waving to us. I always see her in the gym for whatever reason. No matter where I am, we run into it. So exercise is part of that. And I'm just going to just check my phone so I can get done. I'll just stop, Vince, right when the time's up. Exercise, tons of benefits from exercise. Not only makes you look better, but it releases these hormones, dopamine and serotonin, that actually make you feel good. So you can do drugs and pretty much get the same reaction, or no, no, but good thought. So that's what exercise is. So obviously, you want to try to work out every day. Okay, in a perfect world, you could maybe break a little bit of a sweat every day, but it doesn't matter if it's walking or whatever you're doing. Some sort of exercise is huge for you, and there's tons of benefit on it. The next one is D. That's not drugs, but that's diet. Okay, diet. I know if I kind of and I have a crazy travel schedule where I'm on the road right now every week, so I have to be incredibly disciplined with all of these things. Like last night, I want to be the first guy there because I'm going to be the first guy out. Because if I'm not the first guy out, I'm going to have a hard time going through the whole day today because of the travel and the time changes and things like that. So D stands for diet. Kind of like watch what you eat. Most of us can probably get away with eating less carbs. It's kind of crazy. I don't know if there's all sorts of books on everything, but I remember Wheat Belly talked about like a slice of whole wheat bread has a higher glycemic index than a Snickers. And you're like, what do you mean, right? So if you can avoid like white and stuff like that, that's huge for you. And the S stands for sleep and just getting enough sleep. All right. So those are keystone habits that create small wins. So that's one little part of Mr. Do. Let's see what the next thing is here. Okay, yeah. There's a system. There's also a system, the four disciplines of execution, which is a book that came out. And I've been practicing since about 2009, and it's just 4 disciplines. I'm going to take you through them real quick. The first one is the focus on a wildly important goal. So the whole idea with that is you don't focus on doing too many things. You focus 1, 2, or 3 things. All right, that you just focus on, opposed to focusing on 20 things at one time. It's the old adage, if you chase 2 rabbits, they both get away, right? So discipline 1 is a discipline of focus. And then another part of discipline 1 is the battles you choose. Like, see, you want to grow your business. That's what you want to do. You want to grow your business. So the battles you choose to grow, that's your war, growing your business. The battles you choose must win the war. So you got to pick, what am I going to choose? Is I going to do, buyer representation? Is it practicing my listing presentation? Prospecting? What would that be? You would choose that, So the Discipline 1 is the discipline of focus, but the battles you choose must win the war. So be real focused on what you're doing. All right. If I was running an office, or a team, I'd be looking at per person productivity and my average sales price. Those types of things. So that's discipline 1. Discipline 2, so discipline 1, focus on your wildly important goal. Discipline 2 is to act on the lead measures. And I know this office here in Vince has always had a great culture on that. And I know we got a lot of people from Atlanta. And I was with Dan's managers early, one of the first times I came in, and took them through this or DX, and they've been doing it very, very well too. But a lead measure is something that's predictive and influenceable. If I do this happens. So that's what a lead measure is. And you want to focus on the lead measures. What we get to see, me and Vince at the end of the month, what do we see? We see the lag measure. This is what we did last month. Well, a little too late, right? So you want to focus on your lead measures. They're predictive and they're influenceable. The third discipline is to always know where you are. You have to have a scoreboard at all times. So keep a compelling scoreboard. So you're just measuring. You've heard the thing, you can't manage what you don't measure. Well, it's so true. Okay? So you want to have a scoreboard that you can see at all times. And it's got to be easy. I call it the 5-second rule. If it's if I can't see if I'm winning or losing in 5 seconds, the scoreboard's too complicated. It's kind of like a football. When you go to the football game and you look at the football scoreboard, it's really only got 6 things on it, right? Now, it's different than the coach's scoreboard that has all sorts of things that they're measuring. So that's the third discipline. And the fourth discipline is create a cadence of accountability. Now, the first 3 disciplines set up the game, but you're not in the game without that cadence of accountability. And what that cadence simply is a call where you'd get your team in together, or you'd get your office mates in together, or whoever you're doing this with, and you'd have a call where they would just do a report. I committed to making 5 new contacts. Okay, I made 5 new contacts. Next week, I'll make 5 new contacts. It can be whatever that is, but it's just a cadence. There's no whirlwind in it. It's just you're reporting nice and quick and nice and quick. That will accelerate the team. Now, I tell you what, I did that with our franchise sales team. They're on a WIG call. If somebody really wants to listen in at 6:30 West Coast time every Monday morning, and they just declare those things. There's about 5 things that they declare. I'll tell you the magic in it, all right? This is an off year pretty much for real estate, okay, for some people. I mean, everybody in this room, you just won't, you'll have the mental strength to just not participate in inventory being down or this or that. You won't buy into any of the BS excuses, right? Because we're going to win no matter what. But here's what's happened with these great salespeople that were pretty good salespeople and pretty good workers, putting them in this system. We've generated about 5.3 million in new revenue in the first 8 months of this year. The record, if you go back for the old history of Prudential, was 4.4 million. So we've exceeded the revenue in 8 months of what they did at the record year, like a 2005 or some big boom year. But here's the key: we did it with 6 people. They did the same thing with 27 people. All right? And that's what this whole system does, makes you incredibly efficient. You put it into your team, and I bet you double the pre-tax profit of your team. Okay? It takes discipline to do, and you have to do it on a regular basis, right? The call is on the same day, same time, every week, no matter what. Whirlwind's never allowed into the call. So that's the 4 disciplines of execution. It's a great little system. Didn't make it up. Companies have been using it for a year, but it's a great way to be a Mr. Do. I don't know how many of you have an accountability partner, but that's a great thing. See, some of you raise your hand and that you do, and that's a great thing to do. Have an accountability partner. All right? We would have an accountability partner, and we'd switch it off every single month. You'd have a new accountability partner. And up there it says start with the interview. Okay, and you went, okay, well, what's the interview? And by the way, you spelled it wrong, Gino. No, I didn't spell it wrong. It stands for inner. And on that first call or so, you want to connect, right? You want to connect with that person because if you study championship teams, the better they do is the closer they are. So the interview questions are this. So what do you do? How'd you get started? Where are you originally from? What's your current family situation? What was your family situation growing up? Were you active in school? Give me a memory that stands out. What else do you do besides work? Who from your childhood had the biggest impact on you? What did that person teach you? If you look at your life as a radar scope, there'll be highs, there'll be lows. Give me one of the highs. What does that tell you about yourself? Give me one of the lows. What got you through? What does the future hold for you? If a young person was asking you for advice on how to live their life, what would you tell them? And when it's all over, how do you want to be remembered? Now, those are quick 18 very fast questions, okay? I use them with my customers. I would have a customer come in and very nicely and slowly and ask those questions. Sometimes if something was too personal, you might not go there, but you kind of just do that and you build that little bond. But what I would do is I would have 2 customers in a row and then one of my friends or agents right after that, and it would be a 30-minute meeting. So I'd be at the coffee shop, customer, kind of new customer, I had met them at an open house or wherever, and just wanted to get to know them, and I'd ask those questions. And then the next person would be showing up. But the law of reciprocity makes that person want to know the same answers about you, so it almost would start a whole nother meeting again. Stephen, great for recruiting. That was the first recruiting. Those 18 questions, it's the first recruiting script on any recruiting thing, because recruiting's kind of like, dating, right? Takes some time. So an accountability partner. So what are you doing with your accountability partner? Well, you're asking them, okay, you already knew what they said they were going to do, because I'll get to it in a second, but you want to obviously, to be a Mr. Do or Mrs. Do, you want to work from a list, right? And we all work from a list. It's pretty obvious. But what happens when you work from a list? You do the easy things on the list just to get the list moving. So there's a way around that, and I'll show you. I think it's one of the slides in a minute. But that's what you'd want to do on your, there it was, good, it was right there. That's what you'd want to do on your accountability call. You said, these were the top 7 things you were going to do yesterday, Steve. How did you do on them? How'd you do on this? How'd you do on that? You might role play something. You might work on some skill. But you're going to have a connection with an accountability partner every single day. In fact, there's a guy, Michael Gelbert, who sells franchise sales. He's our senior VP, and it's probably why our franchise sales are going so well. But he started, Alan, October 2nd. I've talked to Gelbert every day. I told him we're going to break Lou Gehrig's consecutive game record. So I talked to him on Christmas. I talked to him on New Year's. Think, oh my God, you're talking to him on business? No, it's not business. We're just pals. We happen to work together, and we're just checking in with each other and keeping things going. So you want to have that accountability partner. You try to tell the accountability partner, don't buy into my BS excuse on a reason why I didn't do what I said I was going to do. That's the best accountability partner to have. All right. So what makes you efficient in being Mr. Do is we know, working from a list. We know you'll double your productivity right away if you work from a list. But then that list is so long, I'm doing the easy things just to get the list moving. So how do I get around that? And this is doing the top 7 things, okay? Now here's the interesting on this. I send this out to everybody at HSF. Every night at 5 o'clock, every employee that I have gets my top 7. So they know I'm right here doing this. This is one of my top 7 things for today. They know I'm right here, Vince, with you. Okay, so everybody knows where I am. And if you're a team leader, you got to make sure whoever's grabbing your phone or looking for you always knows where you are, right? Dieter will always know where I am, or everybody will, because I've got my top 7 on there. So you put the 7 most important things you're going to do, and you try to get those 7 things done no matter what. Now, here's the key. You need to put a time frame next to each item, and you want to try to finish that item within that time frame, because there's a thing called Parkinson's Law, and Parkinson's Law is work expands or contracts to fit the time allotted. So if it's a 30-minute task, I want you to do it in 30 minutes. If it's an hour task, you do it in an hour. And Deb, the day doesn't always go perfect, right? So we put buffers in the day, never buffers in the time, because it'll expand to it. So that's a little secret on being Mr. Do. Just was checking on the time there. Going good. Okay, and let's see the next one. Okay, so yeah, plan how much time you allocate to task, plan the day, and just prioritize it. So that's on those 7 steps there. Let's see, monthly commitments. All righty. Now these are more for if we were coaching just managers. So with agents, you just change recruiting contacts to listing contracts. Right? Buyer contacts, those types of things. But you'd be amazed. How many of you think you keep your commitments? Man, everybody raises their hand, right? Every time I've done this, everybody has. And I took 4 NLP classes, 6 months long, where we had to make commitments every single month. And I remember the first time I'm saying all these different things I'm going to do. Merely, I'm saying I'm going to visit 26 offices this month, right? Which is virtually impossible to do. And so what happens on the commitment thing, it gets you to actually make the commitment of time that you can actually do. So you start to commit to things you can. But I would give your team, okay, days worked. I wanted everybody to look at their calendar on my team and tell me the days they worked, because everybody thought they worked actually more than they did. All right, it just was how it was. So they'd look at the calendar, days worked. The next thing I wanted them to do is have recruiting contacts or listing contacts that I'm going to make, buyer contacts, retention contacts. You can pay calling your COI, right, your center of influence. It can be those. But I had 6 basic things, and because of the Buffini stuff and all the handwritten notes, I still write a ton of them a day or a month. That was on there too. And then you could have 4 others of whatever you wanted to have on those. And those would be 10 commitments. And then you got to track them. And you track them with everybody. Remember, when performance is measured, Performance improves. When performance is measured and reported back, the rate of improvement accelerates. That's the whole idea on being doing things and being a doer. Okay, the last one. At the end of every call on that WIG call, now by the way, there's a call on Monday which is strictly a WIG call where you're just reporting. I can do it with 12 people and it's going to take 15 minutes because it's fast, okay? The Friday call, the second call of the week, takes longer. It takes about an hour, and that's where everybody's going to talk about their win for the week. What was your win this week? What did you get? What did you get? So that's a Friday call. On the Monday call, though, besides doing that, everybody's like challenged to say, what am I doing to improve this week so I'm better this week than I was last week? And we'll get things like, in fact, Bob, since we started doing that, and you were one of my early accountability partners, how much weight have you lost? 24 pounds. So give him a round of applause. That's pretty cool, right? Now, I believe that's because a lot of his commitments was, I'm going to get into the gym, or I'm going to watch my diet. And typically that's what happens on these. So people start to actually self-improve, which is great. All right? And that's what you want. As a salesperson, you want an environment, just like this culture here is just amazing. You want an environment that's invigorating, but sometimes slightly uncomfortable, right? Because that's where you're going to grow from that discomfort. You know, so what am I doing to improve this week so I'm better this week than last week? I think that was, yes, we got the whole team now. Our whole entire team reads the same book. And on that Friday, one of the things you have to come up with is your takeaway from that chapter that we're on. So we'll do a different chapter of a book each month. Okay, and that's a very, very cool thing to do, and that's all about growing. So here's with my latest books right here. Sapiens, a Brief History of Humankind. Incredible book. I had to listen to it 4 times because it just blew my mind because there's so much of history that I did not know, and so many things we know now with carbon dating and all sorts of things, which is amazing. Never Split the Difference is negotiating as if your life depended on it, and one of the values we have as a realtor is being able to negotiate, and we can't take that away. Okay, the service guys, the agents that are discount brokers, they won't talk about what a great negotiator they were, because if they were, they wouldn't be working for someone that's going to give it a 1 or 2% fee there. 5 Stars is an all-time great book. Allan talked a tiny bit about the power of telling a story. Carmine Gallo wrote Storyteller's Secret, wrote Talk Like Ted, wrote The Steve Jobs Way of Presenting. He goes through a whole little thing. And that's a very cool book too, Carmine Gallo. He'll be at conference. Okay, so you can see Carmine Gallo. He'll be at conference, which is great. And then the most recent one that I just picked up, it's called Invest It, How Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger Taught Me to Master My Mind, My Emotions, and My Money. Okay, was a really interesting book too, and it talks about we need to be, and that's why Allan and I are going to do that real estate financial planning system, because you need to have a plan to become financially independent, right? If you just grab your money and you stick it in a savings account that's making 1%, you got 3% inflation, right? You're actually, in 40 years, that $1 will be 40 cents. Right? So you got to put your money to kind of to work with it on things that you need to become, need to know. So let's see. Look at this. Winner, chicken dinner. It's 10:01. So we're right on time, partner.
Good
okay.
job.
All right.
Let's give these guys a hand. Allan, Gino,